Hey people, what's up? K-Hart here. So a few weeks ago I did a short on making dark emotional piano melodies, and since then I've had quite a few people ask me to do a full video on it. So ask and you shall receive. I'll do kind of some tips on making dark melodies in general, add some drums, and make a full beat out of that melody. So if you're into that type of stuff, please remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you're not, drop me a comment, and I promise I will respond. And on that note, let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. Okay, so whenever I'm making a dark melody, definitely want to pick a minor scale, or even better yet, a harmonic minor scale, which basically just means you have notes like this, which are close together or a semitone apart. And that is what creates tension when you play these notes that are close together. So for the melody that I made in the short, I basically started with just the one chord, which is this A sharp minor chord. And I'm just going to make that one bar. I'm going to try to make it 1 bar long. And then I just take this middle note, which is the third. I'm going to move it up an octave, and I did that by just holding shift and then up to move it up an octave. And then I'm going to arpeggiate this, which just means playing the notes at slightly different times. And then I'm going to go through and pick notes that are close to the notes I already have. So this is a nice place to add some tension. And this might be a little too much, so I went down to the D sharp here up to that E. And that sounds like this. And then basically all I did was I took this and duplicated it across the 8 bars here. And then took these notes here, and I'm going to drop these down to the F sharp. And then just to kind of make this a little less jarring when it drops down, I just add this G sharp. And then just to make these chords sound a little bit fuller, I just took all of these notes down at the bottom here. I'm going to hold Control and drag straight down to duplicate them, and then I'll hold Shift and down to move them down an octave. Just helps add some depth. And then for processing on that, I basically just had this velocity effect. It's a MIDI effect in Ableton to make sure it's not too harsh. So I just have some EQ cutting off any of those lows that we couldn't hear, and some of the highs as well, so it doesn't interfere with the top line melody, which I'm going to add in just a second. I have some compression to make it louder without making it sound too harsh. And I have it sidechained to my kick, which I don't have put in yet, but will in just a second. And as usual, I'm using the Noire piano from Native Instruments, which is kind of my go-to for pianos. Okay, so after I had those chords made, I added this melody over the top. I always have my melody be about an octave higher than my chords. It helps fill out the frequency range, and it's easier to be heard. Usually the higher frequency stuff are going to be the easiest thing for the listener to hear. The notes are really close together to just kind of make it a bit darker and have a little more tension. And this is what that melody sounds like by itself. And then I just have that same MIDI effect for the velocity so it's not too harsh. And the instrument, I actually have that same Noire piano, and I made it an instrument rack here in Ableton by grouping it. And I added this Celesta on top of it to give it a little bit more of a bell and a nice ring to it. And you can make an instrument rack like this just by clicking on your instrument and hitting Control or Command G. And then you can add another chain in here, and you can layer as many instruments as you want. Same processing on here for the piano chords. The only thing I did differently was add the Shaperbox just for some simple panning to make the melody kind of go back and forth. Next, I went into Analog Lab and just found a nice mellow pad to layer that piano with. So I just took those same piano chords and simplified them a little bit. So I took out all of those middle notes so it's not, super tensiony across the whole thing. It's going to be a word now. And it's basically just giving a little bit of body to the bottom of those chords. Then again, same processing on that pad as the pianos pretty much. I have that bandpass EQ on there, the compressor, sidechain compressor for my kick, and then I have a Valhalla vintage verb right on the channel. And I don't usually do sends for my pianos, but for these two I did just because it was getting a little muddy with having the reverb right on the channel. So I have these sent to ascend to the same Valhalla vintage verb. Then to give this a little bit more low end, I went back to Analog Lab and grabbed one more pad, this backdraft preset, and I just played along with the root notes of the chords, so it's a little bit more of a bassy tone. And that's just to kind of help fill out the frequency spectrum. And one of my favorite things to do when making beats is make my own textures. And so what I did was I took this Stradivari violin from Native Instruments and just kind of played along with the piano chords. And I reversed it and basically recorded it into audio. And this is what that sounds like without any of the processing I added. So it sounds pretty horrible. So I put halftime on there to darken it up and make it a little more mellow. I grabbed Portal with this Chordal Clouds preset, and this is a really nice one for just kind of making things kind of flow together a little bit better. Really great for making background textures. And then I have the EQ on there, which is a pretty narrow band pass. And then again, sidechain to the kick. So with all of those effects, it sounds like this. That Portal preset is actually really helping it create a lot of dissonance and just tension because it's kind of making everything sustain longer than it would. Okay, so I went ahead and penciled in this hi-hat pattern. I dropped Native Instruments Transient Master on there to kind of give it a little more punch and attack, and then I took the sustain down a little bit so it's a little bit shorter. EQ cutting off all of those lows that we can't hear anyway. And then Shaperbox to just kind of pan it around a little bit. And since those hi-hats are pretty busy, I opted for a kind of simple kick pattern. And my usual trick is to copy and paste my kick pattern up onto my 808 and kind of start from there. And so this pretty much follows along with the kick. I added a couple glides in there to make it a little more interesting. And for the most part, that's following along with the root notes of the chords. Next, I just grab this clap and put it on every 2 and 4. And then I just kind of put an open hat here where the closed hi-hats aren't playing. And I have this percussion down here right before the clap hits. And that's pretty much everything I'm going to put into this one, I think. So I'll go ahead and arrange it and we'll do the final beat. So for the intro, just starting with that piano and kind of the pads, and then bringing that violin texture in. Right into the chorus with the melody playing. And then I actually decided to write another kind of little melody to put of the low end energy here before it hits the chorus one more time. Alright, that's it for this one. As always, please remember, like, subscribe, leave me a comment. Really, really appreciate it, and I will see you guys in the next video.